we're on the screen. Every time I mess with these controls, I never know what's going to happen. So today I'm here with Sophia Louisa. This is my beautiful guest and my friend since 2020, catching up on how we even met in the first place, which was amazing. Okay. And introducing her to my bestie, Terry Smith out in Manitoba. And we're just going to really get into who is Sophia and what she's doing now, because you're just an amazing woman who I admire. We both admire each other. We all admire each other. Yay. But you're doing a lot. Even the other day, we got introduced to one of your friends who was a Mormon, but even how you met her, still amazing how you loved on her and were able to be an impact on her. You're working on a lot of things. I saw in your bio, like more than one book. We already know that. Well, I already knew that you're into film and creating your own films and entering into different festivals, being successful in those festivals, and even helping your daughter with her own jewelry and your own artwork. I would like for you to just tell us who you are and what it is to be Sophia Louisa. I mean, and tell us about your background with film and spirituality, how it all got mixed together.
First of all, I have to say, I love the internet. This is so cool, because if it wasn't for the internet, I don't think we would have ever met. And I don't think I'd be doing as many projects as I am doing if it weren't for the internet. So, they're always good things. So when people poo-poo social media, I'm like, how are you using it? They're just, I ask myself that all the time, like, who am I? It's like, why am I? That's always big. Like, why am I here? That's really been like the biggest question at late, especially with all these massive changes. I've always been a creative. I mean, I started off as, when I was little, I was a dancer, and I loved to play make believe and acting and making up stories, and so that's always been within me. And I, more so than a writer, I call myself a creative, and my slogan is to be in the creative flow. And that's not just with creativity, because, well, if you think creations, it's creativity, which is to create, and everything that we think of manifests into a creation. And so I'm a creator, and I like to think that I write people's stories or help them write their stories. I love that. I love that flow, because creation is always a collaboration. And that's what life is. Life is a collaboration. And people get so caught up in not being their true selves. They have, there's so much fear to being authentic. And I think for me, when I was growing up, I always found my truth through the arts, whether it was through dance or through painting, always through writing. I always found that I was part of that bigger picture by doing that, no matter what was going on. And it's really interesting. I think the biggest art form is living a true life. And that's probably the hardest thing for people to do, because we as humans have so many hang-ups, and I'm not going to curse. We have a tendency to really screw things up when we have opportunity.
You can if you like to. Okay, so first off, we'll say there's no ghost at her house, everybody. There's just someone working on the roof, so everything is cool. Just don't worry. But if you need to let out an expletive every now and then, I mean, to be your true self, then so be it. And I really appreciate what you're saying, because what you're saying, the bottom line, it really is hard to connect. And I think what you're hitting on right now is why we're having a hard time having true relationships with people, is because so many people are faking it till they make it, or pretending, hiding behind a facade. And they're so afraid behind this false image of who they are or who they present themselves as, that they can't really have true, meaningful friendships because of that. And we just got through talking about the fact that, you know, we don't talk every day, every month, even. Sometimes we go months without talking, but because you and I are being our true selves with one another, like she knows she can ask me any question and she might get way more information than she bargained for. But because we're like this, that's why we can be friends and check in.
Right. Which is
Because
nice.
you are you.
And I don't know what, well, okay, I had asked myself that, why is it so hard for people to be their authentic selves? Well, we have all these restraints on us through society, you know, that comes from religion, or it comes from, you know, in education. It's like, you have to stay seated, you have to raise your hand, all these have tos, or you can't ask questions. And apparently here in California, the governor wants to have grades, first grade through high school, have media literacy courses. So you know how to recognize things that aren't true. So pretty much they're saying you have to take what the news says to heart and not question it. And I thought, wow, what total fuckery. You know, it's like, when we should be teaching how to cultivate ideas and ask questions and push those boundaries and go out and explore, because that's what creativity is. Creativity is always pushing and questioning, and how far can I take this, or what would this character do, or what would this color do, or how to create architecture. That doesn't come from thinking in a box. It's like, how do you expand that consciousness, not only without, but within in. And now we're teaching our kids to not even ask questions. We're teaching each other to not engage by saying, why are you doing that? Or why aren't you happy? I mean, I know someone who has such a big heart, and he's in a relationship where he's so unhappy, but he feels so threatened in losing everything. He's staying where he's at. And like, why do we have to live with that fear? And then if you think about all the great artists throughout history, they've used fear to create. They've used whatever that angst was, or that feeling of whatever you want to call it, and they pushed it. And I think this is where spirituality comes in, because when you really allow yourself to be in that flow of creation, you're working with the universe. And it is not, it's not good, it's not bad. It's like the balance of being. And people get so afraid of being who they are. And I see it all the time. And I feel like I have to navigate waters just to do when you get in that flow with someone, to really be in a place where you're creating, it's so magical and so much fun, and it feels so good. And I sometimes think, if people can just feel that passion of being it, how different this world would be. We could all live, you know, in an incredible abundance, and yet we still have such fear. No, you have to do this, or smash them down. And we get caught up in the bullshit part instead of just being in that authentic place. That was a mouthful. I'm sorry.
Do you think that a lot of it has to do with the belief systems that we have, that society is now sort of cementing around people, and even around our children? You know, 40 years ago, there was more of an ability to express through art and just being creative. But now everything is structured, and we're told what we have to believe. And, you know, when it comes to the news, this is the truth. And so people are afraid to expand and open their box of reality, because it feels comfortable being in this tiny little box. And the exploration is not encouraged anymore.
Yeah, it's really not. And going back to art too, I mean, it's as freeing as being a creative is. There's still so many restrictions, like with the way we're treated. I mean, there's such a fear of just exploring creativity. I don't know why we are a society of such rigid confines, and of course, all always boils down to control. But when I think when you are spiritual and you can really connect to the universe, all that stuff falls aside. but we're still in this 3D life where we still have to follow the rules and live. So they are really going to town up there. It's really hard finding a balance. And I think people don't know how to find a balance. And they don't even want to ask anymore, because there is a certain comfort in having those, like a certain comfort in having that bondage that people are accepting more and more, which I think is really scary.
I would say two things: pack living, because that's what we're built into these neighborhoods and clubs and groups and social groups. There's this pack living, but then we had one kind of bullies on the field that promoted one thing, like maybe racism or anti-female, rules, suffocating the divine feminine and so on. And so now, because we're squashing those bullies, I feel like a new set of bullies are rising up that are squashing the divine masculine now, squashing anything that says, if you don't think like me, then you're wrong. And I can put an ism behind you. You know what I mean? Like, here we had a group of bullies running, but this new thing that is evolving, it is still suffocating us. It's gone from one extreme to the next, where, and I don't want to get too deep into like political things, but we're being suffocated. And I think, like, when you have a really weak person who now can rise up and raise up with their points of views, they are not trying to find peace. Instead, they're trying to find revenge. And so I would say this is where I see things imbalanced, because I think you should have your expression, but you shouldn't be able to stomp out other people's expression in the process. You've gotten your right to express yourselves in these different groups. And so now you're squashing out other people's rights to be what they are as well.
Right.
I don't know if that
really
fits where you were going with that.
It really, and you were speaking, and it made me think of, how much healing there needs to be done. If you think about ancestral healing, and how we carry their wounds just by being who we are, and how do we start allowing healing to happen when we're so caught up in keeping the divide, and because you look at little kids and they're so full of pure innocence and joy, and they don't care what color you are, they don't care where you come from, it's like there's that love, and adults, quash that on them right away. I remember, my daughter, she's special needs, and she went to a school in the first grade, and she had a best friend who had the same name as she did. And this little girl's parents didn't want her to be friends with her. And there was like a real issue, and so they tried, but they had the problem with it. And so when she moved into the second grade, the parents made sure that their daughter was not in the same class with her. And that broke my heart, because these two little girls they had a great connection. They were great friends, and they could really have great friendship. But it was the parents who chose not to let that happen, and yet these are the same parents who are screaming, we want this and we want that, but they can't live it themselves. So there's such a fucking hypocrisy everywhere, and it comes down. So what's your wound? What is within you that needs to be healed, that you're triggered by this? How can you get over yourself to see that you need this healing and allow that to happen? And by doing so, you'll heal someone else. But we're so afraid of even looking at our own wounds that we would rather shit on someone else than be true to who we are. And that's what's so fascinating to me, is I can explore all these different qualities within a character just so someone else might get it. Someone might see the subtext, or they can see like, oh, this is within me. They may not, but maybe on a subconscious level they will. And of course, it could be disguised as a thriller or a horror film, or a drama or whatever genre it is, just to have that connection, seeing something and seeing within themselves. And I think right now, the way we're ascending as a whole, not just us as humanity, but the whole planet, and even I believe the whole universe, we're just having this whole upgrade. I think people coming more to realizing that there is a lot of shit, and how do we use this as fertilizer, to grow ourselves? How do we up our games without being afraid? But meanwhile, we have all these other little minions saying, no, that can't happen. We got to crush them down and keep the wounds bleeding, instead of saying, okay, we have these wounds, but let's heal and let's make something beautiful happen because of it.
I think that's the con, is that people think because one group is standing up to fight for their rights, or they say, oh, the children, and we have to do that. Like, they don't realize, like, oh, it's still another enemy of the state. There's still an enemy of peace. There's still an enemy of justice, even though they're standing up for a different value.
Right.
What in your life, what would you say has come first, like your spiritual growth, or were you involved in film first, or spiritual growth awakening? When did that come about for you?
Oh gosh. I did not. Growing up, I was not into spirituality at all. I thought tarot cards were scary. I was told that, because my mother was bipolar. She's passed on now. But when she'd be very manic, she would see. And as a little kid, she attracted a lot of negative energies to her, just because, she was a gorgeous woman. And there were a lot of things that happened to her. And as a result, I think a lot of negative energies attach themselves to her. So as a kid, I would be scared to death, and there was no one to really talk to about that. And so I would be told, oh, that's evil. You have to pray to Mother Mary, pray, And so I'm like, this is weird, And so I never really bought into religion. To me, it just seemed like a bunch of hypocrisy, because I'm from a small town, and you see people in church who I knew were out beating their wives, out selling dope, or out doing something that wasn't the way of what they were supposed to. So from a very young age, I saw huge hypocrisy, and it just never jived. So I found my way through the arts, and I remember I was part of a theater group. And I was stepping in for a role, and there was a stunt scene. Well, the guy I was working with, he didn't warn me what he was doing, and I had on like these 6-inch heels, and he pushed me, thinking that I was in position. I wasn't. I landed right on my head, right on the back of my head, and nothing seemed to help me feel better. And so I ended up going in for a Reiki session, and I'm 5'8", and this Reiki master was like 4'11", tight, like 80 pounds. She was like a little fairy, right? So cute. Mm-hmm. At our table, and I had an out-of-body experience. And I haven't really talked about that. I wrote about this in the script. I haven't talked about this. And I was able to see things I had never really seen before. And first it was fascinating because it was very beautiful. But then as she went on and she was hitting my lower chakra areas, I felt like I was pulled out, and I felt like I was being sucked into a dark vortex. Scared the bejesus out of me. Scared her. Apparently she said I was screaming, and she literally was smacking me, trying to bring me back. And her husband was like really tall. And so he comes in, and they wake me up, and I'm like freezing. My whole body just like ice cold. And I literally felt like I slammed back into my body. And she had no idea what happened. And that was my introduction into learning more about this. And anyway, so I started my search. I started studying. I saw a shaman. I've had a few shamanic journeys, and I even joined a priestess of the rose, because what happened was Mary Magdalene. I'm sorry, Mother Mary came to me, and it was such a beautiful experience, and I was so happy and excited. And so I never talk about this. So it's kind of cool to share this. So I joined this priestess of the rose group, and because I wanted to learn more, about Isis and Magdalene and just all the different goddesses, and so much I did not know. But I was still writing at the same time, because that was something I'll always do. And I just produced my first feature, and it was called The Devil's Heist. And I mentioned it in the group, and it scared these women. It scared them. The Devil's Heist? What are you missing? And because I had shared experience where I saw, I was seeing all kinds of different goddesses, and it was just amazing what I was starting to see. And so they freaked out, and they just like totally freaked out, and they kicked me out of the group. And I'm like, okay, all right. To me, that didn't make sense, because I figured, well, one, we're all mirrors of each other. Two, we're all here to learn from each other. Three, life should be about balance, taking spirituality and living with it within this 3D life, how to make our lives better by having that balance. So I was kind of very bummed out about it. But anyway, I agreed to. The movie, it's not scary. It's an independent, cheesy film, but it was my first film. Anyway, so it was kicked out. I was not going to let that stop me from continuing to learn. And then as I started learning more, I met all kinds of different people, and I thought I really learned a lot. But then I found that in this spiritual world, that they're really no different than people in regular business. I mean, there's still a certain mindset where it's like, this is my way only. I'm like, but there's so much more. It's just not one way. And so when I was meeting people saying, yes, it is, I'm like, you're missing out on the whole picture. And so I stopped arguing with people. I'm like, okay, you be you're providing service, be love. Awesome. But you start really thinking about how much there is, and we're just like a small little tiny speck. Why not embrace it all? Why not say, okay, that's, and I gravitate towards this, great, and I gravitate towards that, great. It's just like people, we're all different, and you're still loved. I'm not going to hate you because you're not like me, and I think that's the problem. If you could just let go of your bullshit and just be, that'd be so awesome. But we see it everywhere we go,
Terry, did you have something to say? Because your face, you look like you're interested in saying something.
No, I just want to say that's exactly true, is that you end up with these groups that are very closed. And if you bring a different idea into them, they can't handle it. And so you end up with these different groups who are like, this is the only way. And it's like, no, you got to continually grow. Right. And as you grow, you see other perspectives of things. It's not just one way. And I think what happens with a lot of gurus is they end up with this closed system. And you have to be flexible, because there's different ways of viewing the picture. Right. No one way is the right way.
This is how we ended up with a Bible. You know that? Because that's actually, there's all these writings, right? And people are still writing. But once you create the Bible, now it's closed. That's it. This is the only thing that God wrote. So no one else can talk anymore, because we've encapsulated it in this book. So the canon is closed. We're not taking any more messages. We're not getting anything new. One day I saw somebody wrote this. They said, how can you put a canon on God? Because that's what that is, right? It's the canon. How can you close the canon on God?
Right. It doesn't close.
So how can we close the canon on anything that we're learning right now? Because that's what happens once we join a group and it becomes official, or if somebody writes a book, it becomes the official guide to whatever this way of thinking is. And like Randy Kramer called it, that magic word, the echo chamber, you go there to pick up the information that you already feel is true. the one that you already agree with and not to be introduced to anything else. And you can't step on anyone's toes.
Isn't the universal law though, do not cause harm?
Right.
Causing harm. Isn't that's
there's also the law of allowing too, yeah.
Right? So it could be in state of allowance, so long as you're not hurting anyone else, intentionally anyway, right?
And I did want to ask you, because of that, because you're like trying to be this spiritual being, like we're all living spiritual lives, shouldn't really be something that you have to try. It's just something that we end up doing. But are there some things that you do avoid, or topics or films that you do avoid because of that? I mean, that was not really a true horror flick. Like you said, it was just a little, it's a dabble. It's a thing where when you first get started, you have to do something, right? You have to do some things to be seen, to be a part of.
And that was such a crazy experience. And I mean, it shot in Mexico, and I wasn't part of the filming experience. I pretty much just wrote it and threw some money at it. But and there was a lot of improvising, and there was they changed so much of it. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. It's all part of the learning process for people. But I've had to ask myself a lot, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to be a screenwriter? Why do I want to create story? Because you hear of all these stories out there, and so many people who are so caught up in the 3D realm of it. People have stories to tell, and sometimes people can only relate to stories when they see it visually. It's like they're not going to sit down to read a book. And I think it's such an opportunity to really create something with people who want to have that same experience. And so that's why I want to do it for the people who do it for the passion of it, not because, it's a business, because they have a story that they want to tell. And I feel that me being who I am can help tell that story. That's what's exciting to me as a writer. And the reason why I'm in the business. It's a crazy business, but everyone has a story on so many different levels. And it's we're all so similar. I bet each one of you have incredible stories that would be fascinating for someone else to read or hear or be inspired by.
I just want to ask you about the industry. Have you noticed a change in your industry over the last 4 or 5 years? Are you finding that it's becoming more inclusive of those individual stories instead of being dictated by a hierarchy of some kind? Or do you have more freedom of expression over since what we've experienced in the last few years?
I know COVID changed it a lot. And then we had the writers' strike, and then the actors' strike. The two unions went on strike, so that changed a lot for a long period of time. We're definitely seeing. I almost want to call it a lot more woke type stories, but it's shifting, and it had to change. Storytelling. Probably since TV first started, it was always white men, creating product, telling us what we needed to watch. It's definitely changing. But I'm over 40, and I'm a Heinz 57 with all kinds of different nationalities within me. I'm still considered a white person. I'm like, it's like I have a lot. I'm like, whatever. I just want to tell a story. It shouldn't matter what color you are, how old you are. I mean, if you have a great story to tell and it resonates with people, that's what I want to read. That's what now it's like, oh, well, you have to be under 30 and Black, and you have to be from the ghetto. It's like, what?
I will speak on that because I think they kind of overplay it as if all Black people have one lifestyle and one existence. And it's like,
There's so many different types of people.
It's very irritating because it's very limited, and it's like it's as if Tyler Perry went and wrote everything for Black people all at once. like everybody's aunt and is not raising them, and everybody's, you know, dad is not a pimp, and everybody's, you know, it's just very limited, and it gets very contrite, some of the stories, even though somebody's story is that story, but it also, I think, affects us in the fact that, especially for me, I feel like when I travel, that people are like, "Ooh, Black person," you know what I mean? Like they think everybody's like from Boys in the Hood, and they don't know, like, you know, all this.
Yeah, and it goes back to fear. You know, it's like, you know, why are we so fucking afraid? You know, it's like, be who you are.
Well, everything on TV is horror. Why are we? But then again, too, why are we so attracted to horror?
Right. Well, I heard someone say, I asked that question one time, and they said, well, if you go to watch a horror film, you know it's not true, and you can release the fears you have in life by watching the film. I thought that was an interesting concept. You know, it's like, you know, go watch something. But then again, the power of manifestation, you know, if you're putting something out into the universe and you're bringing that into your consciousness, how are you attracting that to yourself? You know, so there are all these different, you know.
But now you just laid it out though too. So now if I put a conspiracy in there, now you won't believe it's true.
That's true. Oh, we have so much disclosure in movies. Oh my God. And people are like, no, it's true. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason why it's in there. You know, writers, I have to say, there's a certain magic to writing. Because I mean, and I don't know if this is for all people, but when you're in that flow, you're connecting to spirit. And I know people don't want to, you know, there's something in the universe. I'm just the tool. I'm like the pen. You know, it's like, it's coming through me. It's not coming from me. And I think a lot of movies we see, like Star Trek, for example, you know, the person who wrote it, he said the same thing. It's like it came through him to write it. And Lucille Ball, she's the one who picked it up, and she shot it at what is now called Radford Studios, which is like not far from. And everyone else had passed on it, but I think as writers, we all kind of have a responsibility of what we put out there. And so when you start having huge dollar amounts, you know, big production companies, like what kind of mess, they know what they're doing. You know, it's like just to be greenlit on something, it doesn't happen just because. You know, there's a lot of power behind studios, and they know that. And that's why I love independent film so much, because there's so much more freedom. But when you have these, they know exactly what they're putting out there, and they know writers to use. And if you really start looking at some of these movies and see what's happening today, and you start piecing things together, it kind of really makes sense. Now, I can't say that to a lot of my friends who are writers and actors, because that's not true. But every time someone says that's not true, I'm thinking, well, you're limiting your belief system. You know, it's like you're limiting your own creative force, because everything's true depending on what timeline you want to be on.
I get that, because I went to Universal Studios, and you go to Harry Potter Land, and this man was dressed like a wizard. And so we asked him, did he believe in magic? And he just made it into a big joke. Like, they work there and they're like in the magical place, and none of them believe in magic. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing too for people to be in certain films and not take anything out of it and just leave it, because every film I watch, every cartoon I watch, if there's a word or an incident, or, you know, if they say 1956 something happened, I go look it up to go find out the truth in it. Poor Sophia, she got booted out for a second, but maybe she'll make it back. If you want to, I'm going to kick her all the way out, because she's halfway out and she'll be back. But I always thought it was amazing that people can watch movies and not believe anything in it, when you can get so much detail from it, or, you know, just to be so offended by it. I don't know, Terry. I know you're not like a big movie watcher at this point, though. But you watch Star Trek and stuff like that.
Yeah, I watched all of those shows, and it was, but I guess I always came from a different place, because I always thought, when I watched Star Trek, it was like, yeah, I know this is real. Like, and a lot of the programming I did watch, I always look for the truth within it. So,
And then too, I sometimes wondered, I mean, sometimes we know that some of the stuff that we're seeing is there to make you, it's there to lead you astray, like to create a belief system at the same time. So sometimes when I'm watching a film, I don't know whether it's disclosure or is it trying to mock you, because now I've noticed since 2022, the 2021 maybe, the new films that are talking about conspiracies, literally talking about them, literally talking about things like Illuminati, they're literally talking about these things. Is it really there to mock it for the people who already don't believe it, or is it there as disclosure for people who do believe it? It's hard to say what the role of the films are now.
yeah, there's so much. Yeah, you really don't even know what are they trying to do. I think a lot of times they're just trying to cause a problem that that causes people to believe in conspiracies, right? So
So hold on, everybody. We were just talking about the different roles of the film. Maybe if I send you a new invite.
Yeah, they did. I guess the powers that be didn't like what I was talking about that.
Yeah, they knocked her out, didn't they? Wow.
Too funny. Oh well. Yes, I have that much power.
There you go. Let's see if that helps. If you can use a new link.
Oh, do you send it through Facebook or?
Facebook Messenger.
All right, cool. I'll do that shot.
Okay. Her power went completely out. You know what I was thinking? One time I was I had somebody working on my roof and they cut my satellite completely. They were like, "Oh, I thought it wasn't working." I was like, "Oh, thanks a lot." I had to get a whole new thing installed because of it. And I'm just gonna say, hey to JB Light, Alley Cat, Jax, Deborah, Dom. They're always with us.
hi, everyone.
So, hey.
Yeah.
We're just trying to see if she can get back on. I'm not really sure why. Are we not? So anyway, hey Amber, how you doing? We got to do that launch next week when my website is finished and we're ready to launch that new website. So you just got to tell me when, and we can have a launch party, y'all. We'll go online and go live, and I'll give you a tour of my. Yay, we see her, and do a tour of my new website. But
Yay, she's back.
Yay.
It was so weird how that happened, but who knows? But thank you for letting me back in.
We were saying sometimes we can't tell if films are supposed to be disclosing to us, or are they really just mocking what we would call disclosure for the people who already think that we're crazy. It's hard to tell sometimes. Like,
well, a lot of times when people write something, or like say a writer, I don't think they are fully consciously aware of what messages they're saying. Okay, have you seen like Doctor Strange, for example, like a Marvel movie?
Yeah.
All right. So some people say, "Oh, I hate Marvel movies," right? But if you watch them, you see so much disclosure. Okay, like Doctor Strange, for example, like with the astral projection, leaving your body, the sacred geometry. And a typical person be like, ugh, what? You know, that's just a movie. But if you really see what's happening, and what's so interesting, we all have those abilities within us, you know, to astral project, to, you know, utilize sacred geometry, to, you know, like the Merkaba. We all have these abilities that they say we forgot or we've been dumbed down with. But when you start accessing that part of our subconsciousness, it starts coming to the forefront, and you can start using it again. You know, people don't really know how to or stuff, but I always find it so interesting when they belittle it. So if they can blindside you with one thing, what else are they blindsiding you with? You know, and I think that comes back to finding your truth. Did we lose Erica?
Yeah, we did lose her. I hope she's coming back on here right away. Yeah, but that's true. There is so much, and especially the Marvel movies. You see a lot of disclosure, a lot of information, and it's like, but people think of it as science fiction or make believe.
Yeah, but everything's happening. Remember Dick
Exactly.
Tracy? And Ant-Man Subtania, or I can't remember the title, but when he talked about, you know, going into the world like super tiny. I mean, why not? Why can't that be something that's happening? So I always think every time we have a thought, it's being created somewhere, like in some universe. And I think it was Dolores Cannon who said that. Like, she said, like, every decision you choose not to make, it's happening in another realm. And that makes total sense to me. You know, and that's why it's so exciting to write, because I feel like you're accessing different realms. You know, it's just coming out anyway.
No, because you said that about Ant-Man, you have to think back, like, okay, so people think you're crazy to talk about a weather machine. They've been putting that in cartoons and movies ever since the early 1900s. It goes way back. So the thought that it is real, I just feel there's no choice but to understand that has manifested itself, because these are the things that scientists have been working on. Dr. Moreau and the pig baby.
Oh,
okay. You've heard stories of scientists hybridizing humans and pigs, and even Terry just did research the other day, and she found out that humans were and pigs had hybrid, like there was this hybridization of humans and pigs done by the Anunnaki. Like, if you look up all the way back, even to the first cartoons, they all had aliens. How long have people been writing about aliens in books and in movies? That it's such a prevalent thing in our history of television that how could you not believe it? To me, I don't know. I guess I don't even know what it feels like not to believe in it, because I've always believed in giants, fairies, dragons, aliens, all these things. So I don't even understand a person's brain who doesn't believe it. So I don't even know. That's like a person who doesn't worry. And I'm like, oh, how do you do that?
It's all there, you know, and why not? You know, well, show me proof. Okay, well, why? You know, it's like, what is proof can do? You know, it's like you either believe it or you don't. You know, it's right.
So Sophia, the film that you've got coming out, it's called The Wrecker. What is that about? Does it incorporate any of these?
Oh no, purely action. It's hardcore star drone. You know, little. As a writer, I mean, I love all genres of action movies. I love horror films. I mean, I love writing them, not watching them. I love romantic comedies. To me, it's the process of creation. So one of my jobs as a writer is to work with other writers. And so Wrecker was not my idea. It was something that I helped rewrite and come to life. And through that relationship. I've been able to work on several other scripts with that same producer, and one's supposed to go into production this spring, which happened to be a horror film. And going back to the Priestess group, when they asked me, well, you're choosing to write horror. I'm like, no, I'm choosing to be a writer. And if I want to succeed, as a writer, I have to make relationships. I have to put myself there. And I think based on my spirituality of being who I am, I'm attracting to me the type of people that will work together. And I feel, because I am an empath, a lot of times people with wounds that they're not fully aware of come across my path. And I'm learning how to navigate those waters while still being a writer, but at the same time, in a way, being healing to them without it seem like I'm being healing to them, like holding space for them, because so many of us don't have someone to hold space for. And that's been really interesting. Earlier today, I had a Zoom interview with a potential person that I am going to write for, and he has such an incredible story, and yet he has his wounds. And by me holding space for him and truly listening to him and asking him questions that he said he had never really been asked before, I felt like this is helping him heal. And just with Susie, on the book we're writing together, this has been such a healing journey for both of us, sharing her story, because there are many truths that we have. And I know when I was growing up, I didn't have a voice. You weren't supposed to talk. You keep it yourself. This is our shame. This is our embarrassment. No one else needs to know. These are our skeletons. And it wasn't until I started going through my own spiritual journey that I started to learn how to develop my voice. And being in theater class helped me, find my voice through different characters. And so what's so fascinating is we have an industry of so many wounded people. Because as an artist, like some of the best songs, some of the best artwork, some of the best architecture all comes from someone who's experienced a lot of pain, whether the pain is ancestral, whether it's, whatever they went through. And we all experience pain on different levels. Like one person I knew, he was traumatized because his second grade teacher hated him, or that was his perception. That was his big trauma. I'm like, okay, I can't make light of that because that's his experience. And then you have people who've been traumatized by people of the church, they've been physically abused, sexually abused, emotionally abused, and they have that trauma. So we all come with something. And so to create, using that and allowing the process of creation to heal, I think that's what's most attractive to me in this art.
I think I think what you're basically saying is what I'm about to write. It's like we haven't always all been Virgin Mary. You know what I mean? Like it's almost as if the people say in that group, so were you born and lived a perfect life and then you just came here and amen. You know what I mean? Like is this what your path was? Like none of us have this path. So you have to think of me when I was 17 and I was struggling and I was watching all movies, right? And then there were these little breadcrumbs in the movies that said, like Fight Club. He was like, go deep to your spirit animal. There was little things that he said in that movie. And I was like, oh, and I thought it was the most amazing thing, right? These little things that I held on to when I would watch different movies and I'd be like, oh, I found one. And then it led me to the fullness of the way that I think today, because I would find these little breadcrumbs. So for us to block out, all these movies and say, of course we get to a point where sometimes this is no longer good for our energy because we've risen above it, but the movies are actually written for people at different levels. And I like to say to people, like, today you are this thing, but don't you know 20 years ago, somebody was waiting for you to wake up. And 20 years before that, somebody was waiting for them to wake up. It's as if people assume that we can all run the same race at the same time, at the same pace, without allowing.
Right.
So now I can go back and write my pimp movie. I'm gonna tell you, when I left the army, I was like, oh, everybody's watching these reality shows. I'm gonna write this pimp movie. And then I came to a different level of thinking, and I was like, you can't make those jokes. And now it's like, and I've also said too, there's certain things that I haven't written because I didn't want my mother to read it.
Right.
I didn't want her to ever read it, or I felt like she would be angry if she saw that I wrote it. Like, we let other people, and we let the rules decide who we are allowed to be. And without the darkness, there is no light.
Right. I mean, it has to be a balance. It really does. And yeah, and we all have different experience. And it's so crazy. It's like we sign up for this. We sign up to have these experiences. It's like, I guess, okay, all right. It's like, I'm going to go to the next spiritual level. I'm going to expand my soul more by knowing what this feels like, knowing how I behave through this pattern. It's why, I don't know. It's just energy, consciousness. Why do we do what we do? Why are we here? I don't know, but we are here, and we have to, I don't know. Have to sounds so weird. But we have these experiences. Why? And it's funny because some people are perfectly content doing their thing. We're seeing so many babies being born with different abilities. Why is that happening? Is it because of our food system, or is it because they are souls that want to help teach us, to compassion, or to remind us to get back to love, to remind us of what's really important. Every experience we have is not for naught. It's has meaning, and we attach ourselves to the meaning. We just have to allow it. We can't hold on to anything, and it's just like we have to just let it be, but still be in this place of love. And it's crazy. It's so such intense abstract concepts, and yet here we are. We are, doing what we're doing.
Some people would like to blame certain films for the way that some people act too, because I know that, like, okay, again, if you go back to like Boys in the Hood, there was a good guy and there was a bad guy, and he was supposed to learn this lesson at the end of, oh, don't live a life of crime or you can suffer. But then some people glorify the negative part. I mean, how do you justify that? How do you explain that? I know what my explanation is, but I want you to say yours.
I think people all love stories. Everything's story based. Ever since the beginning of time, there had to have been some sort of story. And so when we see certain movies, okay, again, I don't want to say propaganda, but maybe it is propaganda. If we want a certain group of people to feel a certain way about another group, or there's so many levels to get a movie made. Like, as a writer, you have an idea, you write the script, right? Then you have to get it to people who believe in it. So if you have a producer who has a studio who has the money to make your movie, he's going to want to put his spin on it, or he's going to want his ideas on it. So if he has an agenda, because he's getting funding from a corporation, for example, or he's getting funding from, somebody who wants to promote something, like he say, the higher up you get, the more convoluted it becomes, and so it's never just about the story. It's about the money. How am I going to get my money back? What's going to cause the biggest draw? What's going to get people riled up? Who's going to come in and see this? There's all kinds of marketing algorithms. So if you have a movie like Boys in the Hood, it's like, who's our target market? We want this group of people to get riled up against this group of people. Why? Because it can serve us in this business. What I mean? It's never just one thing. And I think a lot of people don't get that, and it's such a controlled game on so many levels. And so, oh, hi. my brother's visiting.
Oh, it's okay. And so I think we just have to trust too that as these creators that we are, that our messages are going to reach the person that they're supposed to reach. and somehow it's going to come through, because somehow I get messages from everything I watch. I find something
Because
small, and
you're
I'm like, aha, the tiniest little thing. I remember we watched a movie once, and you picked up something, Terry, that I didn't pick up, and it had something to do with the oil in Libya. And I can't remember what movie this was. It was some crazy movie, and the guy was trying to make this deal, and it was like, oh, you were like, this is, and you pointed out the fact that it was Libya, and it had oh, I know what it was. It's one of my favorite movies. What is it? When the guy takes the pill and it makes his brain work, and he gets to
The Matrix? No, The Matrix.
no. He
Keanu
takes a pill and his brain works, and now they're trying to sell this drug that helps you.
Limitless with Bradley Cooper.
Limitless. And you picked out the
Yeah.
weirdest part about the oil deal in Libya, Terry, and it had to do with Gaddafi. And I was like, whoa, I forgot. Like, and it was actually filmed 6 months before they had put him to sleep. And it was interesting that it was a part of the movie. And I was like, she picked out the most obscure line of the movie. She found all that. And I was like, oh, look at this, So the messages are in there hidden. And if we want them, they're there. And just like you say, like a hot water can be used to take a bath, or it could be used to burn somebody. You know what I mean? Like, so these things are just tools and instruments, just like money. People want to say, oh, money is evil. Oh, people with money are bad. It's like, no, it's all these things are just tools, and how we use them is what's most important. But so in this project, you've already worked with Danny Trejo, or you're going to work with him, or it's already complete, or
the record is in post-production right now. It's supposed to come out, I believe, September. But yeah, Harvey Keitel is in it, which is very exciting.
Right.
Survari, Tyrese Gibson from Fast and Furious, and Danny Trejo. Love Danny. I mean, they're all amazing actors. And Niko Foster is in it. And so it's an action film. It's a fun film. I mean, yeah, The Wrecker. It's about, justice. And we've written a sequel. We'll see if that gets shot.
What?
Yeah.
And, so a question. So when they're filming the movie, were you there on the set the whole time, or just on part of the time, or at all?
No. Yeah, I was just I was not part of the production, just the writing. And yeah. And that's fine by me. I mean, I have a lot of projects I'm working on, so I do kind of miss the acting part. That would have been fun. But I mean,
but the thing is, you've got like some really heavyweight hitters that are bringing your work to light. So this just leads to you in the future having more powerful work, because once you get these names on it, like people would say, oh, especially Tyrese, they'll be like, don't worry. Like, ooh, they got, some spooky things to say, but it's like, you can be blessed regardless. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes we pick that person and we say, oh, this one person, or this one person has darkness, or this one thing, and we allow to throw our whole baby out with the bathwater, when the energies that be can be used to promote your light. Regardless of what their light does, they can still prosper you forward to be able to do great works. You know what I mean? I think that's what people don't really understand. Like the creator has power to use any and everyone.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, because I think everyone has a light, to some extent, whether it's obvious or not so obvious. And it's all about love. It's just love. And people want to feel love. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. And if you can just connect with that it makes a huge difference. And I think, and then, stuff happens, whether it's another writing project or a book project or making a movie, it's that connection. The fear part, it's hard. I know when I was working on Devil's Heist, there were a lot of wounded people, and one person got severely taken advantage of by another person. And I don't know all the details in that. And his life changed completely, and chose to just walk away from all of it. Because I wasn't in a place myself to deal with any of that. I think that's interesting too. It's like we have choice. We have choice to what we want to share our energy with. And to just because I'm making a movie doesn't mean I have to be a part of it. I try to stay true to what I want to do and what I feel I can help bring life. Because I want to do it, not just because it's a writing project, and I'm glad I have, that I can choose. It's like, I don't want to work on just anything. I want to work on something that I feel will make a difference to people. And like the book I'm working on with Susie,
Yes,
that is a book, and it's gonna resonate with so many people on so many levels. And so when I first talked with her about it, and I didn't even know what she looked like. I hadn't seen her picture. And I didn't want to know. I wanted to hear what her heart and soul had to say to me. And we talked for a good time. And I knew I could write her story. I knew I could help her. And I knew that there would be this incredible healing for both of us, just from what we've been through in our respective lives. And those are the kind of projects I like to do. And granted, I love writing action movies and the fun ones. Those are great. But I still bring an element of that, something that will connect with another person. Might not be so obvious, so not everyone will pick up on it, but that subtext that will resonate with somebody, if they're in tune. So
I'm looking forward to that. As we had a chance to speak to Susie, it was so interesting because for some reason this year I watched Shiny Happy People, and it was basically talking about the fundamentalist Christian movement and certain people, the family from 19 and counting, but what was really going on in their community. And I always did love Big Love. That was something wild. And I don't know why, I really just liked that show about the Mormonism. And we've gotten a chance to talk to Violet also about her controlling, highly controlling religious families and stuff like that. So to just be able to say that, and then boom, you said, hey, why don't you talk to this person? And I'm really looking forward to being able to talk to her, to be involved in actually sharing her story. That was just amazing. I just thought it was like kismet how you had just connected with her, and then why was this even on? Terry, did you want to share about our conversation with Susie, or?
Well, the conversation we had with her is like her heart is just like, you can feel it through the screen, and she's just so real and so able to talk about her experience that it brings you into her emotion, and you can feel that you're almost, as she's talking about it, I could almost feel myself living what her experience was. And I know I'm looking forward to the book and just seeing it, because just the way that she just expressed herself, and I can only imagine how you're able to bring it to life just through your writing ability. So it'll be amazing when we will have an interview with her as well. She's just amazing.
I wanted it sooner, but I was like, oh my God, we're doing this, we're doing that. It was all, but I wish we could have done it sooner. So one thing that's special about you two, you're still doing your artwork. Are you still doing shows and being a vendor for your artwork?
I've been focusing mostly all on writing because there's been a lot of it. And then my daughter, she makes her jewelry, and she's also a singer. So she has a new song coming out called Drama, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, Olivia. So this is her 10th song that she will be having out. So we need to put it out as an album, but I need to figure out how to do that. So yeah, she works with this wonderful guy here in LA called, I'm sorry, his name is Christopher Pappas. He's a indie musician here. And he works with her and he arranges the music and he helps her, put the lyrics all together. And it's a really good song. Yeah, I'm really excited and proud of her.
And so, I don't know if did you want to discuss her at all, like her abilities?
She's my angel, that's for sure. Yeah, it's like I'm looking at her.
She's like, don't talk about me,
Mom. No, she's really awesome. I think she's very tuned in. She's really helped ground me in a lot of ways. She was diagnosed with having mosaic Down syndrome when she was about 18 months old. That diagnosis came out in 1995. She was born in 98. There's a lot people didn't know. It's a variant of Down syndrome where there's the extra chromosome. And I remember when she was 4 years old, and I had to take her to a psychiatrist to be tested. And I remember the psychiatrist told me, your daughter is going to be institutionalized. And I looked at her and I just picked up my daughter. And I said, fuck you. And I left. And I didn't go back. And she's never, she was mainstreamed. And I put her in speech therapy and music therapy when she was really little. And now she writes her songs and she writes poetry all the time. And, we're talking about doing a poetry book because I have volumes of her poetry. And she has her music and she loves to sing. And she makes her own little videos on YouTube. She from different movie clips, and she's just a ball of love. Just this amazing, beautiful young woman.
That's amazing. How do you think she was when she actually found? I don't know. I guess I'm dealing with a son with autism, so I'm like literally. He's, and it's funny too because I think he didn't really even know that he had that diagnosis until maybe a couple of years ago. And I think he gets somewhat offended by it sometimes, but I don't know. Like, did she deal with that? Like,
I don't. She's in front. We haven't really talked about it, but she's so aware, and she's so gifted, and she can really read people very well, and she's such an empath. So she knows, she knows how people treat her, but she's such a big. I mean, she's so full of love. She would help anyone in a drop of a hat. I think she chooses kind of like stay in her music, like her own self, and her poetry. People aren't always kind, but she's always been kind. And I think she's really, so I get really excited when I see people like Christopher Pappas, who is excited to work with her and help her create music. I'm really excited when I see people who want to support her jewelry making. It's, life is full of all kinds of challenges, and I feel blessed because she's healthy and she's so alert and aware. I know so many people have, so many other things that they have to deal with. So I feel very blessed that, of who she is. So
right. I feel very blessed with my special son too, because I mean, there's a lot of, I see some people's kids, they're super greedy. They're very demanding and or even more dependent, or maybe more. I think God gave me exactly what I needed. This perfect little person who is just the way that they are. Because I'm in here, he's out there, I accept. I think too, I wonder, what do you do with to how do you even know that a child is into music? Like, what have you done to open the doors for her to be creative in all areas the way that you have? Like, was it just that you noticed certain things, or did you give her certain classes, or
Well,
how did you
music.
expose her to all these ways? Because, you know, if I don't have stuff around the house, then my kid can't make jewelry. So you obviously opened the door to allow her to be creative by making things available.
Right, and that's what we as parents have to do. I mean, we can't just put them in a box. Well, I was really into the world. I mean, into art then. So she was introduced to painting at a really young age. I remember one time she's about 2 years old. I would paint my kitchen, and I had left all the paints out because I was right in the middle of a big project, and I had to run to the bathroom. And when I came out, she had paint all over her body. There are all these little tiny footprints of paint all over the kitchen. And I'm like, it looks so cute. But it was a rental apartment, so I had to clean it up. So, just it was always there. I took her to her first opera when she was 5 because I got opera tickets and I couldn't afford a babysitter. So, I mean, yeah, she's going to the opera with me. We only made it through the first act, and we had to go. But music, I mean, the arts, that was always, I would drag her to art shows and gallery shows. And I know for some people, they just don't do that. But art has always been, for me, my saving grace in surviving a lot of drama growing up. If I didn't have art, I don't know where I would be. And I think it was my grandmother who put me in dance. So it's like when you have someone who has those connections to do something for you, that makes a big difference. And it's so funny because schools now are taking out the art programs, taking out the dance programs and band, everything that helps cultivate who a person is, and helps them retain all the other information that's being taken away. And I think it's all intentional. It's like, let's dumb them down even more. So it's, and kids who are on the spectrum, animals and art, music, crucial, painting, crucial, anything to get their hands and feel like they are creating something. Let them write, even if it doesn't make sense. Just let them, just be in that, something about that creation process gets the motor skills moving because it connects you to source. Some people know that's not true, but do it, try it. There's something there.
I just wanted to say the band program. I know when my daughter went through middle school and high school, that was such an important part of her life because she was just accepted as who she was in band. And there wasn't the competition of being the best jock or being, you were who you were. And everybody's talent was appreciated by, and everybody was accepting in the band. And so I know for her, that was just such an important part of her life skills that she learned in band and working together, because you had to work in unison. You couldn't be off somewhere else, like it is the music part in schools is so important for children because it does teach them another way of seeing things, right?
And even just the basics of, if you're playing an instrument, of how to breathe, how to hold your body, how to learn how to read the music. You are utilizing so many different things you don't realize, and the commitment it takes to following through. I mean, so many of us can't breathe. We're always holding our breath. But if you're playing an instrument, you have no choice but to breathe. Even if you're playing the drums or another percussion instrument, it's like the rhythm and the vibrations and the frequency, it's all tied together. I wish they taught frequency in school. That'd be so cool. I'm going off on so many tangents. I'm sorry.
No,
Anyway,
go right ahead. You were talking about frequency in school. Why? Go ahead.
oh, well, frequency, I mean, everything's frequency, right? Is more than just radio. It's just like learning how to read energy. Can you imagine if people knew how to read rooms, walk into a situation and really see what was happening? I mean, then they'd be able to make better choices based on what the energy is in the room. If we were in a bad mood, you put yourself in the right kind of frequency, it can get you out of that mood, right? Raise your vibration. There are all these little things that are all about healing that people just aren't really aware of. So it's really fascinating, and it really takes, unless it takes effort to try to figure it out. When it should be taught to everyone, I think.
I guess that's why it became the occult practices.
Well, I even heard with music, right? Apparently, the late 1990s, apparently all these music executives got together, and did you hear about this? Where they wanted to make the frequency at a lower frequency to make people to dumb them down even more. You know what I mean? And you hear about some of the lyrics of these hot songs right now. It's like it's all intentional. It's not just music for artist's sake. It's crap. I mean, it's like, well, demeaning women, demeaning your abilities. It's making right exactly. It's how to not live up to your highest potential, so you can be controllable, so you can feed into the machine. How do you break free of that? Well, you have to know this stuff. And the media is doing everything it can to not make people knowledgeable. And Erica, when I first saw your video, you were one of the only people who was talking against mainstream media, and you had such truth about that, and I love that about you. And there was such authenticity about that, and there's such a fear in speaking your truth. And this is something I've talked with about Susie, with you, and she's like, I just want to speak my truth. And this other guy I spoke with earlier today, he's like, I just want to speak my truth. There's such a yearning for truth, and there's so much fear, because of it. It's like, well, what's going to happen? Well, we're all going to die. We can't get out of that. The question is, how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live it with truth, or do you want to live it, in lies that compound on themselves? How do you be who you are? And that's terrifying to people. And I just want to help be part of that truth.
I love that, because it's like we are going to die, but how do you want to live? What do you want to be known for? What do you want people to remember about you as you lived?
Well, even if no one remembers you, like, who cares? It's like, but how do you want to live your life? I mean, how do you want to go about each day? I mean, yeah, it's freaking crazy.
They say that on the scale, on Dr. Hawkins' scale, that the highest is authenticity. We can talk about love, we can talk about peace, we can talk about joy, but authenticity is at the top. And people are not, they want to be authentic, but it can be challenging when everything around us is skewed against us to be authentic.
Right. And I don't think authenticity is like, oh, I have to go without makeup, or I have to, do this, or I think it's just not getting caught up in the lies, not getting caught up in, it's like not engaging in the bullshit. So many people are like, you're right, I'm wrong, and it becomes like this noise. But to just find that inner balance, of what you resonate with, because I know all our truths are different, but what makes you feel like you can be who you are without, I don't know, it feels like life is always a compromise, especially as women. But to just really find that balance, do you guys think, it is possible to truly be authentic in this moment of now? Is it possible? I don't know.
Is it possible for us to live
Authentically, like right here, right now? It's like, because it's so fascinating, because like with story, right? You have to have the conflict. You have to have the drama. There are like certain elements that you have to have just to keep that person, the viewer, engaged. You're like, oh, what's going to happen? Because we as humans, we like to follow that stuff. That's why soap operas and novellas and even commercials can have that conflict in it, just to like grab your attention. So can we as a human be in a state of balance and peace and true authenticity? Is that possible? Or is that something always to be reached for? Because it's just so fascinating, because we all have wants and desires. We all want to constantly, we have those needs of wanting stuff, right? So does that get in the way of being true to ourselves? That compromise moment, or, I mean, there are just so many questions that I think about sometimes. Well, it's just fascinating. I probably don't make sense right now. So.
No, it's not that. It's one thing you triggered in my mind was everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And then two, I guess people have a fantasy of what.
We lost her.
Yeah.
Woo! Am I back?
No picture, but yeah, your voice.
Okay, I don't know what that was. It just went bling. Okay, so but everybody has this picture of we're all gonna ascend and everything's gonna change and everything's gonna be perfect. But then, I like say the whole earth came to one and we were all just at peace. Now what? Like, is the whole universe gonna be at peace because Earth is at peace? Like, I personally don't think that Earth experience at all is this thing of we should all just get along and that's what we're gonna do. I mean, we should get to the point where we get to the stage of peace, but I don't feel that it's this thing that we should expect of everyone and everything else. I think it's personal, right? Like, this is my little car and I put my quarter in and I joined the game with everyone else, but I'm in control of this vehicle. And then when I'm ready to find peace, I'll find these different levels of peace and I'll go through my ascension journey. But that was my quarter. It was my turn. But you guys, we're, what do you call that? It's not third person shooter. You got your own quarter and when you're ready to get out of the game, you will get out of the game. And when she's ready to get out, she'll get out. And I think we have this expectation of everything around us to be at peace. But the only peace that we have is when we find the peace inside ourselves. And then we move to these different levels. But I don't think that's what this game is. This game where everybody comes to peace. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? That's what I was getting out of what you were saying.
Well, yeah, we are all on different levels, and we're all supposed to have our own journey, and it all crosses. It's like our paths have crossed, but we're all supposed to. We're not supposed to be all on the same level. How boring would that be? Right?
Boy, it would be boring. If you never had a headache, you'd never appreciate what it feels like to not have a headache. If you were never thirsty, you'd never appreciate the flavor of water. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's about balance, right? And we once we find the balance, we can't live in, like we can live in balance, but it gets boring. And so then we tip the scales, right? And we experience something else and something else, and then we find a balance again. And I think it's about it's about that movement that creates it. And so that maybe the authentic self is just being comfortable with being out of balance, and then finding a space where this is who we are today. And who we are today is, I can be my authentic self today, but I'll be different tomorrow. And maybe it's about feeling comfortable with how you feel, and not
Surfing
I
the
should do
waves.
this or I should do that. Yeah. It's just feeling in yourself, being grounded in yourself, and
Right.
being gentle with yourself sometimes too, and not judging ourselves.
Exactly. And that's what we do all too often. We judge ourselves, which
Yeah.
makes it easier, for people to judge other people. It's, I guess, instead of going to one extreme to the other, because it seems like we're in like these massive extremes right now, to like level it out a little bit more. But will we get there? I don't know. I feel like a lot is shifting right now on a lot of levels, and I feel like these next few years, and it's funny if you look at astrology, there's all kinds of stuff happening, in the charts, and as we're entering into the age of Aquarius, which is supposed to be the golden age, and so they say everything you want or aspire to be, start doing it now, because once we hit the golden age, it's all going to be like the abundance. It's going to be like the harvesting of everything we want, right? Which it's like, yes. And so, and they say those people who are like in the really negative part, where they're constantly, putting themselves down or not doing anything, it's like, it's going to get worse for them. So we are a world of polarity anyway. So, but the extremes are going to get bigger. So if you're like on the upper side, it'll get better. If you're on a downside, unless
I
you
was feeling this.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I was feeling this, that like, especially even when it comes to poverty, people who have an extreme poverty mindset, like if you really think things are bad, like, and this is not to gig on people who are homeless. Like I'm seeing people who are outside panhandling, and this one young lady, she's young, and I don't know if she has a mental problem or anything like that that stops.
We lost you. Erica, we lost you. Oh, we're Terry, can you hear me? I can't hear you. I lost you.
Yes,
too.
I can hear you. I can hear you. But Erica's frozen in space, in another dimension, in another frequency.
Right, exactly. But I know that she was. I mean, if we're still going, right? Are we still on? Can you tell? I can't tell.
Yeah, we're still live.
Okay.
Yeah.
The excitement of being live. That's
so yeah, if you can hear us, you're frozen and you're not here.
But you look great. Yeah. Yeah.
Now she's out. Yeah, she didn't finish her thought there, so I'm just kind of waiting for what she was going to say. But it's true. We have, there's so many. We've just got so many different things that are coming at us, and it is true. If we're going into that golden age, we have to really allow things to. What is it that we are? Where do we want to go? And unfortunately, our society has not kept us. We're so busy trying to pay the mortgage and trying to do things that we haven't had that opportunity to explore a more creative aspect of more creative who we are. And like we will get pulled down into these feelings. Well, I'm this or I'm that, but we can also be above that as much as pulled down to that lower frequency as well.
And that's why it's so important to know who you are. And it's ironic, when you know who you are, then you start tapping into, okay, what are my wounds? How do I start my wounds? And then you figure out, is this my wound or is someone else's? It's so crazy. Erica, are you back?
Yes. I'll
Yes.
finish that thought. Is like, if you think things are bad now, wait until tomorrow. Like
Like things are really going to become extremely different for people. And so it was making me think about the Bible and what it said about there's going to be a time when people will be thirsty and they will not be able to be quenched. They'll be hungry no matter how much they eat. They'll still be hungry. And they said this would be the time of the gnashing of teeth. Because if this thing that we're calling ascension is like, what's that other word that Anne Marie used? The rapture. If it's like the rapture, it's going to seem as if we're being ripped away from people because we're moving up in this density, in this, and moving out of this density into a higher frequency. To them, they'll be looking for us like, where did they go? They're over. Where are they? But here it is so now, as we are lights, now these people don't have these little points of lights anymore because these points of light, like us, are moving into a different space, into a different time. So for them, it will be extremely miserable because they don't have Sophia to say, Sophia, I was having a rough day. That those points of lights where they normally would reach out to and see around them, those lights will be moved into another place. So it would be like this total I don't want to say total darkness, but it's going to be harder for them because of that. And I don't know if that makes sense or resonates with people, but when people talk about the rapture, that's kind of what I visualized it as.
Right. I could see that. Yeah. I think
Where
what's
are
hard.
they? But here it is what I visualize. Oh God, hit the computer. But anyway, I don't know. I interrupted what you guys were saying because you guys probably moved on to something different.
Along the same space. We always have choices, and I think to break free of that comfort zone, because like some people get caught up in feeling comfortable and being miserable.
Yeah.
There is a comfort in feeling like shit. It's like, and they love complaining about it, and to really break free of that. And then if they start talking to someone who is more positive, they say, "Oh, you're just being a Pollyanna," or they don't want to hear it. And if they could just start changing that mindset, but change scares people, which is so ironic because there's change every day. But it's going to be interesting.
I think so. And I think too, what my sister worked in a nursing home and we had a discussion once about your mindset, making sure you get your mindset right now, because if you should ever enter a stage of declined health or become a person with Alzheimer's, whatever your mindset is at that time, you're going to be frozen. So if you're frozen in a positive state, good for you. But if you become frozen in a negative state or a state of worry, and you'll be playing this out for a loop. And I've seen this because working in a nursing home also myself, like seeing people who were, where's my sister? Where am I? Like they were in the state of panic constantly because the onset of the Alzheimer's was right during this time of this state of mind of being. So I think we got to definitely look at our mindset and think like, if you were trapped on a loop in your mind, would you want that loop to be this positive loop where you were being optimistic to the point where people think you're ridiculous, but people might think you're ridiculous, but you'll be happy, or would you want to play out these negative scenarios of woe is me for the rest of your life? Like, think about that.
That's right. Yeah, Alzheimer's, it's become so prevalent lately, hasn't it? It's just like really increased in numbers. It kind of makes me wonder why.
As the frequencies rise, it vibrates out that which needs the healing and attention. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have to grow in our challenges. And then Deborah is saying, yes, I've seen this so much with the mental loop too as well.
I wonder too, so many people who do not live an authentic life, like say they have their secrets or they have, say they were like physically or sexually abused, but they never said anything about it, or they're in a very toxic relationship, they're too afraid to leave. As they get older, if maybe Alzheimer's is kind of like their defense system of like protecting themselves so they don't have to deal with reality, or they've had so many lies, just for their own survival, and that all catches up to them and their brain kind of shuts down. I would, or is it just a way of them kind of going somewhere else? You know, I mean, there's so much we don't know.
Ooh.
Well, I can speak from experience. My husband passed away 5 years ago, but he had dementia. He had a specific type of dementia. He had Lewy body dementia, but there were a lot of things he hadn't dealt with. But I felt that he was living a lot of things that he didn't want to deal with. I think he had to, even though, and this is one of the things that I have observed, and having, because I've lived through it. I believe that a lot of people in the third dimension, they may be out of it, but I believe that at a different level of consciousness, they're certainly aware of everything that's going on. And I know I have a sister-in-law who's going through it, but as she was in the beginning stages, I said to her, I said, Sylvia, it must be very difficult for you because you can't respond the way that you want to. But your thinking process is still there, even though you're not able to convey that. And she just looked at me and she said, yes. So I believe that people who, I'm not saying for all of them, but my experience, I think that people who are going through Alzheimer's or dementia, there's an aspect of them that's very aware of what's going on. It's just that they haven't got that communication between that higher consciousness and their physical body. And
Right.
yeah, I believe that there's a lot to do with the environment and all of that causes that. It's a disconnect, but I believe that they're still there and capable of understanding what's being around it. And it's very sad because a lot of people say, well, they don't know me anyway, so I can't deal with it. But meanwhile, they certainly do. They certainly know who's there.
Right.
And I didn't mean to go there, but
No, I'm glad you did, because that's something we're dealing with now. You know, I'm seeing, I mean, it's so much more than it was 10 years ago, you know, and now they're saying like, who knows, you know, and I think it goes back to, okay, well, get to know yourself. You know, that they say that in every religion, know thyself. We so get to know ourselves, because if we know ourselves, then we have to face our wounds. We don't want to deal with that because it hurts too much. Well, if you don't get through that pain, it's going to come back at us anyway, you know, in what kind of way, you know? So I think it's something that we have to explore and talk about, and know that people we love are going through this. You know, how do we shift it? Is it shiftable? You know, where does it start? You know, so I think anything.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because then now I'm starting to think that, you know, it's like you're saying it, because now it takes me to, if like, say if a person is in a coma or they're in an Alzheimer's state, a certain portion of them is here, but a certain portion of them is aware on a maybe above, outside,
Or
and
maybe
able
they're
to
just
actually see or know more.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is the repeat on the record player. Where are my shoes? Where are my shoes? Where am I? But that's just what the body has present, but they're
Right.
shifting halfway out. You know, because we talked about that, because I know some other people too with family members in Alzheimer's, or not even just Alzheimer's, just they've reached a point in their life where they're actually finished. A lot of people go around saying, I'm tired of this world, but they don't really understand, like, there's a certain age or a certain point where certain, you know, as people get older, they decide they don't want to be here anymore. They actually stop eating. They stop drinking, and they kind of, they last a really long time, you know, but they are making the exit, and part of their spirit has already moved on, and they can see where they're going, and they're okay with it. They're not people that are being taken quickly. They are planning and preparing it as they go. I don't know if either of you have ever dealt with people in that stage.
Well, that's pretty, so my mom, she was on dialysis, and she got tired of it. She said it was like painful for her to do it. She was going like 4 times a week. And so she decided that she was just going to get off dialysis, and she put herself in hospice. And the doctor told her, "Oh, you'll probably be dead in 2 weeks." 2 weeks turned into 4 months before she died. And that was probably one of the hardest things, was to see her die like that. But that was something that she chose she wanted to do. And I know when my grandmother died, she just stopped eating also. She was almost 100 years old, and she wanted to be with my grandfather. And so she just stopped eating. I think the human will is so powerful. When we set our minds to something, our hearts to something, we'll do it. But life can suck for a lot of people on so many levels. And, when people want to check out, I get it. I can understand why. Of course, that doesn't mean you're not going to come back and deal with the stuff you're supposed to deal with. But I can see that, where they're so stuck in what a friend of mine liked to call the lower chakra shit, you're so stuck there, you have a hard time getting past that. And if you don't have anyone or any avenue to start seeing that there are other avenues, you're just kind of trapped. I get it.
And not to say that all elderly people are to the point where they think life sucks. When I was talking about the life sucks, I just see people who gripe. They're like our age and they're griping. I'm tired of this. And it's like, okay, you think you're tired, but you're just really in the mindset of being a complainer. That's how I see it. But then some elderly people, there comes a time, there's just so much more a person can see or deal with or know. They're just ready.
Well, there's so
and then
much.
They're halfway out. I think they're literally halfway out already, visiting the outer realms, and they're just ready to make the transition. They've already seen where they're going.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the massive solar flares we're having, and just like like they say, I don't think there's a veil anymore. I really don't. If you're tuned in, I mean, you can see stuff in the sky, that's not man-made. There is stuff happening, and the energy is shifting so much, and people are feeling it in different ways. They're either angrier or wonkier, or there's just this massive shift happening, and people don't know how to tune in with those feelings. So we are on the verge of something. What exactly it is, I don't know. Is it ascension? I hope so. We are approaching the golden age, so that's freaking people out. So they want to keep all the minions down and under control, hence all the wars, all this bullshit stuff, because they want to be the select few, to get there, when we all deserve to be there. But we are in crazy times, and maybe this is the revelation right now with all the shit we're seeing. But that's people who, there are people who choose not to even engage in any of that and just do their own thing. I'm like, awesome. Yeah, good for you. But we're all on this path together for whatever reason. We're here, to be here for the ascension, to be the light and get over our darkness and get over our bullshit and rise above it. That's what I'm hoping for. And that's one thing I love about storytelling. We can help people do that by sharing stories that resonate with other people, and they can see the power within themselves and choose to rise.
I think we went around the universe and back, you guys.
And we're still going. Yeah, life is fascinating. People are fascinating.
She just said this. Deborah just said this. Her mom was ready to go home, and within 2 weeks, she was happy and singing and dancing those 2 weeks. And I can't remember who it was. Someone else told me the same story, that they were in shock that their mom was in the other room dancing and singing, and she had made that decision. She stopped eating, and she wants to go, but she hasn't made the transition yet. But just to see her all excited and happy in the meantime while she was doing it. Yeah, I think, I don't know, in a way we have our own selfishness, because we want people to stay, and we're like, How do you want people to stay? I do remember during the CV time when we were under lockdown in the beginning, my roommate, she was 69 and her aunt was like 91 and she wanted to go to Vegas and she was my roommate was so mad that they took her to Vegas. I said, if she wants to go to Vegas before she dies and have a good time at the buffet, strip club, whatever it is she want to do, playing dice, so be it.
Right.
What do you want to keep her here for? If you want her to sit inside of a room during the medical holocaust and just sit there and just die in the room, or would you probably rather die in Vegas? You know what I mean? If you're going out, you want to be able to go out with a blast. You probably want to go in Vegas, not or on a cruise. And I know it would be traumatizing to other people, but why do people want elderly people to just sit inside of a bed, inside of a room and not live and not see them? And then the whole idea of you can't visit them before that, and because you don't want them. But wouldn't you rather be surrounded by your family if you knew it was your last breath?
Right.
Well, maybe because some people, family, maybe you don't want them around breathing up your air. That is true. But you be around the people that you love or
Right.
doing something fun and exciting and not just, we can't keep living this life where we tiptoe through the grave. And that's one of my favorite sayings.
Right.
Is that most people live safe and cautious and they tiptoe straight to the grave, without doing anything exciting. And we can't do that.
Right. Nope. Gotta live.
Yeah.
See.
And so we're going to make movies. And if they bomb, they bomb. If they're great, they're great. If we do, whatever it is we do, don't be afraid to try, try 10 times.
Everything you do too, you connect with somebody else.
Right.
Everything you do, every time you reach out. I mean, Terry, I'm so happy to have met you. And had I not known Erica, I never would have met you. So thank you.
Right.
Erica, thank you.
So take chances out there, take chances on love. Even if you got your heart broke, just try it again. I know people look at me, my family looks at me and like, what? You've been divorced twice. Hey, sit down and be old for the rest of your life and just be alone. And I'm like, nah, let's go to Paris and see if you meet somebody. Take some chances.
Exactly. Hey, my dad has been married 6 times. So
yeah.
Right.
He was happy all 6 times until you're happy until you're not. You just keep moving.
Just be happy. Well,
just
figure
be
out
happy. Yeah. Well, I think, is that your final message, or do you have a final message on how to find?
Never the final message. Are you kidding? Wait. Oh, did you hear Olivia burp?
No, it was a blurb. It went by real fast.
Oh, there's never a final message. Just the path doesn't end. Why should it? Our souls are eternal. We're constantly expanding and evolving. And I think the biggest challenge is just being present, being who you are in this moment of now. You may not like it, but you can change it. Just be, whatever that means. The beingness of being.
Take the path less trodden.
Or stomp all over it.
Or create a new one.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Life is crazy. It's just crazy. Cause no harm. Just allow, be you, be love. I don't know. It's like we all have different gifts. We all have different abilities and different circumstances, but it's all just a gift. All just a gift that can be taken away at a moment's notice.
That's it. Don't do it. Make noise. Don't go quiet. Make noise. They had that. They said don't go gently into that good night, and I think that's what that is about too, isn't it? Don't go gently. Make noise.
Yeah.
Be noticed. Be seen. Be heard. And be safe in the body. And we got Sophia's channel up here. It's Sophia Louisa.
Oh, so zoom in, yeah.
So zoom in, and she interviews lots of great entertainers and writers and directors and people behind the scenes that are making life happen so that we can watch, you know, Hulu and Netflix and
Amazon.
all the independent writers that end up on Amazon and everywhere. You know, let's not just discount, because there are some really great souls out there still making content, and maybe you got some content you want to make, books, shorts, channels, clips, something. So don't give up. We got to still keep putting our messages out there because we're winning.
Right.
As long as we feel we're winning, we're winning.
Just being alive, you're winning, baby. Being alive. You're so awesome, Erica. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are rock stars too. Don't make me blush.
Both of you.
Yeah.
Start that up again, definitely. All right. I love you guys.
We're going to let the roofers go. We're going to let everybody go back to normal. Bye, guys.
Bye.